wrapping up our close-up municipal tour this Thanksgiving weekend by bringing in a longtime elected leader of the Lilac City, who's now mayor-elect. Chuck Grassie, thanks for joining us on this Thanksgiving weekend. We appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Adam, for inviting me on. It's important that the people get to see what their mayors are doing in the state.
Right, and when we last talked right after the election, you said you wanted to get out there as much as possible, but something really caught my ear about what you were saying. You said you really wanted to rebuild public trust, and not that there's not that enough in Rochester, but this is on a broad sense. Explain what you want to do.
Well, I think one of the things is that people tend to distrust their government because they really don't know what's going on in many cases, and it isn't explained well to them as well. That's a problem that we see throughout the state. You see it, and particularly with the Facebook warriors that are out there, are really critical, and it does have its it does have its own feet. So what I want to do is I want to get more people involved in the community. I'm going to challenge our community. In New Hampshire, we have a lot of volunteerism. In Rochester, particularly, one of the things that new people, when they move to the city, talk about is how many volunteers there are, or how many groups there are that are working in the community. I want to get people more inspired into that. Challenge them to volunteer more, to get more involved in the community, to help us solve the problems. And what's going on in Washington and Concord right now with cutting of funding, we're going to need people to help us get through these tough times. And volunteerism is one of the ways to do that. That's how I grew up in Rochester, working with the JCs and other groups and volunteering, working in festivals to lift the spirits of the people of the community. And I want to do that as well. And also to make sure that we utilize social media, we utilize the press, we utilize the sources that we have to get information out to the public, to make sure that they understand the mechanics behind what we are doing, because I think that's the thing that's most challenging for us, is that explaining to people what we do it can be difficult, and I want to make that more available to the citizens of Rochester. What
are some of your ideas to tackle the housing crisis?
Well, as I've told people before, throw everything at the wall. Let's see what sticks. Let's see what works. Let's see what doesn't work. I've been working with people for a number of years now on pallet shelters for the homeless, looking at investments in affordable housing, transitional housing, working with the county, working with the Tri-City mayors on getting people into homes, so we get them out of people's backyards, we get them out of the woods, and then young families. We had a very discouraging thing recently. We had to move my grandson to North Carolina because he could not find an apartment up here for less than $3,000. He was working in Boston, needed something, or he wanted something in the southern part of New Hampshire, and there just weren't any apartments for he and his fiance. They moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. They have a wonderful apartment down there. We ended up spending some time with them in May and also in September for less than $1,800, and with indoor parking.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of development in Rochester, right?
Yes, we have.
Downtown is, I've seen it's busy and things are going on. What are some of the projects in queue that you're going to see, or people are going to see in terms of housing and other things in Rochester?
Well, Rochester is one of the fastest growing communities in the state. It's over a 9% growth rate since the last census. But we've got one big project that's going on right now, and it seems to be the generator in the Seacoast area as well, which is the Ridge project. We've got phase 1 has been done. It's been very successful. Phase 2 is just starting because of COVID and other things when shutdowns going on. There just weren't enough investments at the time, but right now they're moving very quickly to get phase 2, and they've already started on phase 3. So Route 11 is going to get more congested, but the state is also coming up, and we've got on next year to start expanding traffic capacity on Route 11, and we will be working to build the Ridge, which has been a very successful commercial development. Has it impacted our downtown? Yes, a little bit, but we've got a lot going on downtown as well. We've got some excellent restaurants that challenge even some of the restaurants in Portsmouth. So we're very happy with what's going on in the city and moving forward. And through getting people involved in the community, I hope to make that even more successful.
You've also served as a state rep. How do you bring that perspective to City Hall as well?
Well, that's a good thing, because I think one of the understanding of what's going on in Concord, because what happens in Concord affects us. I've had a number of people talk to me about issues that we have that are difficult issues in the city, that special education in the school districts, getting our roads repaired. And I said, you know, we can only ask the taxpayers for so much money. And Rochester, particularly this last year, on the lower end of the housing scale, had a tremendous increase in our tax rate. And where can we get more money? We have to look at Concord, we have to look at Washington, and they've just been cutting back and downshifting costs, which has been a problem. You know, when they cut back and $180 million cut to wealthy people, all of a sudden we're losing money at the local level, and that means we either have to cut services or we have to increase taxes. And we're not looking to increase taxes any more than necessary, but sometimes they make it difficult. Rochester's always been a really lean community as far as staffing is concerned. When you take a look at Dover, you take a look at Portsmouth, we have fewer staff people than other communities have of similar size. And it's been tough for us. When you make cuts, you really are cutting bone, not just muscle and meat.
How do you navigate that difficult dilemma of, you know, the cost of everything is going up, and people are feeling it in their tax bill, and yet they're seeing their services either stay level funded or diminish?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and I think what we've got to do is we've got to take a look at efficiencies in what we do, take a look at technologies that will allow us that when we fix a pothole, maybe it lasts more than just one season, and make investments that are going to be giving us a better return back to the community. We've done some of that stuff with some of the commercial and industrial investments that we've made over the years. People have been critical of that, but in a matter of time, that stuff's we're going to start seeing repayments on that. We bought Saffron and GE to Rochester, and Albany Engineering moving their headquarters from Albany, New York to Rochester, New Hampshire. I was involved in those negotiations, and I want to see more of that stuff going on. You know, we gave them tax breaks up front, but it'll start repaying itself, and we'll start seeing that and help maybe stabilize or reduce taxes and also build more services and better services for the citizens of Rochester.
And Rochester's always been a working class, industrious city, and it's seen its ups and downs. You've been there forever. You've been serving in elected office for a long time. How have you seen the character of Rochester, or I guess the character kind of stays the same, but how have you seen the city change, and where do you see it going?
Well, I've seen it change a lot, and the thing is, the reason why we've changed is we've always been a working class community. We've become an older community, and I think we need to attract younger families. The younger families have looked at Dover and Portsmouth to settle in. We need to find ways to attract them to come to Rochester, and we're doing some of that stuff right now. We've just had an expansion of our Riverwalk that we're voting on this next month, and also in the arts and culture and history of the city. I want to expand those opportunities for families so that younger families look at Rochester as a place to locate.
All right, Mayor-elect Chuck Grassie, congratulations, and thanks for joining us. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Okay.